My name is Paul Davies and I'm a member of the 2014 cohort studying for the Executive MBA at Birmingham City University. I'm a senior manager with HCL Safety, part of the Latchways Group. HCL Safety are a height safety company and I'm currently in the position of Divisional Manager for the Inspection and Certification Division. I'm here today to deliver a presentation regarding reputational risk and determining whether it should be considered a fad or a solution in today's business world. As part of the Executive MBA, the cohort were proposed a number of hot topics to look at, and we were asked to try to associate ourselves with a subject that held relevance for us. My gravitation towards reputational risk was twofold. Firstly, as a manager of a safety company operating primarily in the construction sector, risk management and risk assessment is always a huge topic. And secondly, I was interested to explore how so-called Phoenix companies could continue to develop a trade and a business when in theory their reputation as viable enterprises should be shot. During this presentation we're going to run through the following aspects of reputational risk. What is reputational risk? How important is reputation? How can reputational risk be managed? How does reputational risk sit within risk management? And then we'll draw to close with a short summary and conclusion. So, what do we mean by reputational risk? Reputational risk can be defined as the likelihood of failure to meet the reasonable expectations of an organisation's stakeholders. The stakeholders being the customers, the employees, the shareholders, the suppliers, the distributors. In fact, anyone who is linked into or has a vested interest in that organisation. The stakeholders' expectations are that that organisation should operate in an ethical, profitable, responsible manner, and that nothing adverse should be entered into that could possibly cause disruption or damage to the reputation of the organisation or to the stakeholders. So, how important is reputation in today's business world? Warren Buffett, who's considered by many to be the most successful investor of the 20th century, recently stated in response to a question regarding debt and ethical management that it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 years to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. The Financial Times describes a company's reputation as possibly its prized asset and proposes the theory that reputation can be measured as capital would be. That reputation can be increased, or the capital of reputation can be increased when a company does something well or good, and that the same capital of reputation can be decreased when the company does something poorly or bad. However, reputation is an intangible asset and therefore incredibly difficult to quantify and value. And because of its very nature, it's open to perception. So the FT's determination of reputation as profit and loss can be influenced by good and bad deeds, also mean these deeds don't actually have to happen. They can just be perceived. In a risk management survey carried out in 2017 by The Economist and with sponsorship from ACE, IBM and KPMG, 218 executives from around the world, mostly senior managing director level executives, were asked the question, what does your organisation consider to be the most important objectives and benefits of its risk management? The top response was that protecting and enhancing the reputation of the organisation, thus illustrating the importance that senior managers are now giving to reputational risk. We talk about how important reputation is. We can't talk about it really without discussing the Ratner effect. It's possibly the most glaring own goal in damaging one's own and one's company's reputation has to be awarded to Gerald Ratner. Gerald Ratner was chief executive of the Ratner Group, a family business which consisted of Ratners, H. Samuel, Ernest Jones and many other high street jewellers. They were an extremely successful chain with over 1,000 branches worldwide, even proving successful in the US. In 1991, Gerald Ratner, who was also a very successful motivational after-dinner speaker, was addressing the Institute of Directors when he jokingly denigrated his own business and ridiculed the products that it sold. During the speech he commented, "We also do cut glass sherry decanters, complete with 6 glasses on a silver-plated tray that your butler can serve you drinks on, and all for £4.95. People say, "How can you sell it for such a low price?" And I answer, "Because it's total crap." He compounded thus by going on to remark that some of the earrings they sold were cheaper than a Marks and Spencer's prawn sandwich and also as likely to last as long. Ratner had managed to show contempt to and alienate both his customers and his suppliers, his major shareholders, in one foul swoop. The comments were picked up by the press, and even though Ratner apologised and described the speech as tongue-in-cheek, approximately £500 million was wiped off the value of the group. Ratner resigned within 2 years, and then a year later the group was rebranded. The name Ratner disappeared from the high street. So, how can reputational risk be managed? The simple answer is that reputational risk should be managed the same as any other risk should be managed. There have to be policies and procedures, tools and actions in place to control the levels of exposure the organisation opens itself up to. These policies have to be managed and owned. There has to be a distinct line of responsibility leading right up to top management. And due to the perceptive nature of the risk, both that line and the management buy-in has to be extremely visible. It is imperative that maintaining and protecting the reputation of the company be given this highest attention. And for that to happen, dedication and experience in risk management is essential. Once the tools to protect the reputation are developed and realised, it must be considered and decided on who is to be responsible for controlling the risk management, and then this must be notified to all. A well-running and established business should also invest in future protection and management of their reputation. Unfortunately, the perception of the business policy makers can be very different, with stakeholders in particular maybe not wanting to invest a great deal of time and money into risk management department, especially if that organisation appears or is perceived to be in a healthy and stable state. As we've discussed, the goals of the organisation should be in meeting the necessities and expectations of the stakeholders. Therefore, the organisation should identify, outline and record the major needs and requirements of those stakeholders. What do the customers require? What do the suppliers require? How do the sponsors and contributors need to be dealt with and handled? What are they looking for? They will all have ideals of what they're seeking and expecting, and it's the organisation's responsibility and thus their reputation to be to be aware of that requirement. Consideration must also be given to certain crucial elements: communication, ethics, social and environmental responsibility, employee attitude, performance, and the quality of goods and service provided. So the initial step towards the recognition of reputational related risks is to identify the possible conflicts. An organisation can investigate where the likely reputational risks are going to come from. They can run through the possible scenarios, and then once those scenarios have been registered, they can have their mitigation, their replies, their responses ready. How does reputational risk sit into risk management? Well, every business involves risk, and this is the main reason that risk management is now considered as a very important process within each company. Risk management helps evade knowable risks, helps protect from bad investment decisions, helps reduce exposure to possible losses and damages from predictable and unpredictable events. Risk management covers all areas of an organisation's business processes and dealings, but mainly falls between the following: the traditional quantifiable risks, such as the financial risks, credit, foreign exchange, crime, IT security, and modern unquantifiable risks, which is where reputational risk falls. Human capital risks, natural disasters, terrorism. Here we see a chart that shows the elements we were speaking of earlier and how they surround and protect reputation. Achieving satisfactory levels of the items around the outside of the circle will provide a robustness over what they are surrounding. So, communication and crisis management, financial and long-term investment value, corporate governance and leadership, workplace skills and culture, corporate responsibility, quality products, quality service. If we abide by all of these things and we make sure these are being done correctly, they all control any adverse effects on our reputation. To conclude, without doubt a first-class reputation is beyond price. But the question is how to shelter such a vulnerable asset whose value resides not just in the quality of the product or the service of the company, not just in the ethics or the honesty of the management, but in how the business is perceived and acknowledged by its many and various stakeholders. My conclusion is that reputational risk and the management of is a huge solution and something that will only become larger as time progresses. Strangely enough, Gerald Ratner committed his reputational suicide in 1991. He nearly brought down an organisation with a few glib remarks. Yet 23 years later, Signet Group, which is what Ratner Group became, are still the largest speciality jewellers in the US, the UK and Canada. And they turn over approximately $4 billion a year. Gerald Ratner himself is worth approximately £35 million and is head of Gerald Online, who are the largest internet jewellers in the UK and sell their products through Amazon.co.uk. He's also a very active motivational speaker, although he keeps a much lower profile nowadays. And as for those Phoenix companies that first attracted me to this subject, it would appear that in the construction industry where I come across these Phoenix companies, price is still king. And reputation is a long way down the road. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. Thank you very much. Should you wish to find out more information, please check www.fadorsolution.co.uk, and we are also available on Twitter as Fad or Solution. Many thanks for your time.